When trying to grasp the scale of political violence, people instinctively reach for the ultimate historical villains. The internet is littered with attempts to compare modern politicians to the architects of the Third Reich. Take the frequent comparison made between U.S. policymaker Henry Kissinger and Auschwitz physician Josef Mengele. The impulse makes sense. People want an immediate label for overwhelming guilt. But the analogy fails because it forces an argument over the category of a crime, rather than the facts of the crime itself. A camp physician is a direct, hands-on perpetrator of sadistic violence. The policymaker's culpability operates in a different reality. It is the green light given in a closed room. It is death delivered at the scale of policy, ordered from thousands of miles away. Reaching for a Nazi comparison triggers an immediate reflexive dismissal. It hands defenders an easy exit. They can simply point out that a policymaker is not a camp guard, and suddenly you are debating Holocaust analogies instead of examining the actual historical record. And that record is staggering enough to stand on its own. It requires no exaggeration to understand its weight. Look at East Timor. Declassified documents confirm the United States gave Indonesian President Suharto the go-ahead before his December 1975 invasion. Kissinger advised him that whatever he did must succeed quickly. The ensuing conflict resulted in up to 200,000 deaths, roughly a quarter of the entire population. 2 years earlier, the target was Salvador Allende's democratically elected government in Chile. The U.S. systematically destabilized the country to clear the way for a military regime. Official truth commissions document the result: over 3,000 people killed or disappeared, and more than 40,000 victims of severe human rights abuses. This blueprint of insulated intervention stretches back decades, visible in early Cold War operations like the 1954 U.S.-backed coup in Guatemala. The facts are unclassified, the death tolls are documented. So why has no sitting or former U.S. official ever faced a war crimes tribunal for these actions? To answer that, we have to look at the recognized gold standard for prosecuting state crimes, the Nuremberg trials. This flowchart maps the mechanics of what is commonly called victor's justice. Nuremberg was not a spontaneous global awakening to human rights. It required a strict sequence: absolute military defeat, unconditional surrender, and territorial occupation before a tribunal could even be convened. The Allies possessed the legal and physical machinery to try Nazi officials for a simple reason: they had conquered and occupied the perpetrator state. Contrast that with modern superpowers. Proxy wars and covert operations are exported. They happen off the Mastet soil, leaving the originating government's infrastructure and legal systems intact. The international machinery to try high-level officials requires the forced submission of a defeated state, a condition the United States has never met. Even as international law evolved past the 1940s, it retained those specific blind spots. Take the International Criminal Court, established to prosecute genocide and mass atrocities. The ICC relies on voluntary state consent. The United States refuses to submit to its jurisdiction, placing its officials legally out of reach. But the ultimate structural barrier to prosecuting a superpower exists here, inside the United Nations Security Council. For a case to be forced onto an international tribunal against a non-member state's will, the Security Council must refer it. The United States holds a permanent seat and veto power. A superpower can procedurally block any attempt to investigate itself. This immunity for figures who orchestrate mass casualties from afar is the deliberate working architecture of global geopolitics, which brings us back to the insulated rooms where these choices are actually made. There is a terrifying disconnect between a quiet signature in Washington and the physical devastation those pen strokes unleash on the other side of the planet. Nuremberg tried the defeated, but there is nobody who tries the victors. Because legal accountability is procedurally impossible, historical accountability falls to the public. It relies on our ability to read the atrocity ledgers accurately without looking away. We do not need to borrow the villains of the Second World War to understand modern atrocities. We only need to recognize that global justice remains a privilege reserved for the undefeated.